Good evening and welcome back to the continuing learning program of Kerala State Mediation and Conciliation Center. The response to the first program on psychology, its relevance in conflict management was tremendous. We thank one and all for the support given to us for the success of the program. It is time to continue our learning on human mind, a very complex issue. Today's program is slightly different and advanced than the previous one, and we will be discussing the topic hidden psychological factors which generates conflict or block resolution. We have with us Mrs. Loney Jacob, a clinical psychologist from Cochin, and discussing the topic with her is Advocate Sreelal Warriar, a mediator of Ernakulam Mediation Center. We are looking forward to yet another fruitful discussion on psychology, and I welcome both of them, Mrs. Loney Jacob and Advocate Sreelal Warriar, to start the discussion.
We welcome everyone to the second session on the effect of psychology and mediation. In the first one, we had Ms. Loney with us discussing as to what triggers and how things work after we start a mediation. In the second session, we intend to discuss on 2 points. There are times when participants come to the mediation hall with a little disturbed mind and they are not willing or not encouraged to mediate. That would be the first point of discussion. And ma'am, this is what a complaint which most of the mediators give us. And if you could explain as to why sometimes or what makes people discourage even before they come to the mediation center, to the table.
Yes. It's something that happens very often. We have simple things that happen during mediation process that tends to sabotage the whole thing. And when this kind of an impasse happens, sometimes there is a condition or situation which we can control, if we are aware of the situation. I would like to touch upon 2 main issues here. One is somewhat temporary, that happens to a human being due to certain conditions that he experiences. It could be either his physiological status or his psychological state of mind. Sometimes it could be something slightly deeper. When it comes to this temporary factor that I had just mentioned, it depends a lot on differences that exist between human beings. Some people react to stress in a particular way, and some people could be very calm even in a stressful situation. So we call this individual characteristics, that differentiates people when they are faced with a particular situation. The 2 factors that I mentioned, physiological arousal and psychological state of mind, they seem very simple, but it happens very often, and it kind of sabotages interactive session. It happens for us when we have treatment sessions with clients. It could happen during the mediation process as well, because we need interaction happening among people in a very collaborative way. Talking about the physiological arousal, it could be something as simple as being tired. Someone coming all the way, say from a distance for a mediation session, he could be driving all the way, or he could be working for several hours. Sometimes he could be even sleep deprived because of other circumstances in his life. In such a situation, he is already tired and not in a state of mind and body to sit across a table and discuss or view another's perspective in a collaborative way. Being tired sort of sabotages his mindset. It could be as simple as being hungry. So if a mediator is vigilant about this, he could send the person out, say, for a cup of coffee, or if he feels that, or if he knows, or if he inquires if a person has certain physical ailments like diabetes or hypertension, inquiring whether he has had his meal, because he needs to have certain meals at particular times, that could help with his physical status. Just having a caffeine fix, you need maybe a coffee at 3 o'clock, in the afternoon, or you sometimes maybe need to have a smoke. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to encourage these
Everybody
habits.
should go and smoke.
Yeah, but we need to be aware of the person's
Needs.
state of mind or needs. Because here we are focusing on settling an issue with an open mind. And if the person is aroused or tense, it somehow doesn't work out the way we want it to.
Okay.
Physiologically, he could have an increased rate of heart. Maybe he's anxious or he's anticipating something bad happening to him. He could be anxious by nature. So that elevated heart rate itself could trigger, when he faces a confrontation, he could get very upset, angry, or maybe even walk out of a session. So keeping in mind his physical and mental status goes a long way in setting the
mood for mediation, or
yes,
starting a
yes,
mediation.
the movement for interpersonal interaction.
Okay.
So that helps a lot.
So that's basically something which you could work out on priming and other things, and also a little advanced cautioning that, okay, your mediation is going to be starting at this moment, so that you could be prepared for this.
Yes,
so
that would go a long way, because just asking the person, have you had your lunch, or would you like a break? This sets the gives the impression that the mediator is
a little concerned.
very concerned, and he cares for your well-being, and he wants it to go in a particular way. We call this priming, setting up the mood. It goes a long way in while settling issues, conflicts.
We also call it confidence building,
Yes.
It's not a stranger who is going to be mediating into it.
Yes.
That's on the person's feeling before he comes for the mediation.
Yeah.
And there are times when the mediation starts, and we find a lot of mediators find that simple small things which any normal man would understand, or even a child would understand and accept when, told by others. Now sometimes, these persons or some person does not seem to be accepting it. He doesn't even understand. He avoids such kind of situations. This is also something which we normally find, and we feel, there's something abnormal with this particular person's approach towards this particular resolution. But that's another problem that we normally face in mediation.
This is really very interesting, because very often there are certain kinds of psychological disturbances that occur in people who's leading a very normal life. He's holding a job, he's married, he has children, he's leading an ordinary life like anybody else. But when it comes to certain situations like interacting or intimacy, where you need to communicate well, share ideas, some people could have a difficulty there, not because of a temporary state of mind, or like we had just discussed now. It could be something more deeper, more permanent, what we call personality traits, or even more deeper could be personality disorders.
Okay.
Where certain personality characteristics is ingrained in a person, and he thinks in a particular way, he behaves in a particular way, he evaluates a situation or an event in a particular way, which could be very different than another person, the so-called normal person would, or the majority of the people would.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So there are many such disorders, but some of them are particularly, prone to having problems with interpersonal relationships.
Okay.
There is a disorder called narcissistic personality disorder. You may be familiar with the term narcissism. It is actually derived from the name of a Greek mythological figure. He was a prince called Narcissus, who fell in love with his reflection on the lake. And he later died of heartbreak, because he realized that the person he's in love with doesn't exist, it's himself. So narcissistic personality disorder is a person who has an exaggerated sense of self. He loves himself, and he is so self-centered that he cannot think beyond his sense of self. Okay, I would like to mention here that this doesn't make a person good or bad. So as a psychologist, I don't judge a person who would come to me for help because he has a particular disorder.
Yeah.
You know, it is just a personality characteristic that makes the person intensely unhappy because he's confused. It also makes people, communicating or dealing with him intensely unhappy. Okay, so a narcissistic personality disorder usually, are indicated in those people who, have this sense of self-love. He needs approval from others, and he needs constant attention from others. So in a party, say, he would love to be the center of attention. And like the Greek mythological figure, generally, they're very good looking, they're very charming, they speak very well, very glib. So if they want something, they can charm you into it. So when, say, a person with this personality characteristic woos a girl, and he really wants to have a relationship with a girl at whatever level, he would use all his energy to woo her. He'll shower attention, he will do everything for her, give gifts, and he's a perfect romantic partner. But after he achieves, and if at any stage this person is demanding or wants something that doesn't really match with his needs, he's likely to reject her and then go in for someone else. So not only for intimate relationships, it could be with friendships and any other relationships as well. So he's basically very brutal when it comes to his self-interest, very impulsive and very low on tolerance. We call it low tolerance for criticism, or if he is confronted by someone who doesn't agree with him, he's likely to get angry, very aggressive, and also could indulge in very rash behavior. So such a person is very difficult to expect to sit and discuss things and expect him to look at it from another point of view, because his emotional quotient is very low.
So should accept the other person's view or cooperate with the other person.
Yeah, even to consider the person's views would be very difficult for him.
It's only I and me,
Yes.
and nothing beyond that.
Nothing beyond that.
And whatever matters to him, that's all that is of interest to him.
Yes, because here there is a fragmentation between his sense of self. He has his true self, which he doesn't actually like. And so he develops this false sense, which needs so much of attention to make him feel good. It happens at a very unconscious level. But yeah, it is very interesting how it happens, because this person is not aware of his own self-interest.
Other similar categories of persons, with these kind of excessive traits, personality traits.
Yes, very similar to the narcissistic personality disorder is antisocial personality disorder. So, but unlike the narcissistic person, antisocial personality disorder is someone with very low moral sense, or maybe doesn't exist at all. You may have come across people in the criminal world with psychopathy or sociopathy. Those terms are not used in our classification system, but it's those are extreme cases. Such people have no qualms about breaking laws. They get into trouble with authority, and they don't regret what they have done. So they don't have a sense of guilt. And punishments don't really, make them think or feel differently. On the other hand, they could get aggressive, and they could feel that they are not being listened to. But you see con artists here. People who could take advantage of others for his own selfish ends. So an antisocial personality disorder is a person who may not be very healthy for a healthy society, because they don't like to follow social norms.
He would have a different justification for whatever he does, and even if it is illegal, immoral, or whatever, he would have his own explanation for that.
Yes, he will rationalize
his views and his acts, how much bad it is.
Yeah, very difficult to reform them. And since they're only thinking about achieving his own ends, again, collaborative discussion is very difficult.
Very difficult with these people. And he doesn't care for the society, as it says, antisocial in fact.
Yes, yes.
And
The narcissistic and antisocial, they could overlap.
Okay.
You could have a person who is antisocial with a narcissistic disorder as
Yeah.
well. Very often, personality disorders tend to overlap.
Okay.
Or, you could have other psychiatric problems with a personality disorder. It's very rarely that in psychiatry that you have a disorder existing alone.
one personal trait itself being aggressive and excessive, and then
Yes.
Okay.
So you could have a personality disorder with a major illness, a major disorder as well.
we keep hearing about something like borderline personality disorder, things like that. What does it mean?
Okay.
Well, this is very common in the litigation matters.
Okay. Actually, you would come across a lot of borderline personality disorders. And what is actually funny about personality disorders is it's very, since they lead a very normal life, it often confounds people. Why are they behaving in a particular way? For borderline personality disorder, has to do with a basic need. They're very needy people.
Okay.
Though the behavior is otherwise, which I'll describe just now, their basic need is a need for security.
Okay.
So they're dominated by a fear of abandonment.
Oh.
So very sensitive to rejection. In fact, even if there's no rejection, but they perceive a rejection from another person in
Possibility of rejection.
Yes. So their sense of rejection is what they are acting on. So such a person is constantly demanding approval and attention from others.
Or a proof that the other person is attending to him.
Yes.
Just want to reconfirm that he is
Reconfirm.
always so far.
Yeah, but it is never ending. You see, you could have people with this disorder who could say, tell the person that, a significant other in their life to constantly prove that they love him, that they like her or they love her. So they generally set tasks, basically testing, does the person love me or not?
Okay.
And generally people who care will go to any lengths to show that they
really like
love the
her.
person, so they'll play along. So they'll do whatever is being demanded, however unreasonable,
Okay.
thinking he or she will feel secure.
Okay.
But it doesn't happen that way. They just up the ante. They put forward another task which is even more difficult, and again needs to be
Immediately
proved.
after one is satisfied.
Yes. So it's like an ongoing process, it never ends. Similarly, such people also don't believe that they have a problem, So they believe that maybe something is wrong with the other person. So when they come to you for help, or when they come to me for help, they generally come with a complaint that something is wrong with my husband or wife. What we call projection, they project it on someone else. Or it could also be, they have this, very certain kinds of fights between couples or people which follow a particular trend. For instance, there could be a son with a mother with borderline personality disorder who comes home early to spend time with her.
Okay.
But mother is very busy and, is short, doesn't talk to him. So next day if he comes a bit late, saying let her finish the work, and let me come home a bit late so that we can sit and watch TV together. That's when again she complains that, you don't give me enough attention, or you don't care for me.
You didn't call me.
You didn't call me.
Like the other day.
Yes. So it's sort of, it's like heads you win, or heads
Tails.
I win, tails you lose.
Yeah, fine.
Whatever
you do,
way,
yeah,
yes. It's either way you're caught.
Okay.
And it could be just simple gestures, So sometimes you wonder why the other person is giving you the silent treatment, because you seem to be just reading the newspaper and having a cup of coffee. Everything seems to be fine, but your partner is very upset and not talking to you. Something about you, maybe what you did or how you replied to a question, anything could have triggered off this symptom, and then it ends up in a disagreement or
You
fight.
mean to say the other person takes it as a lack of concern,
Lack of
a
concern.
response,
Yes, I'm not loved,
Okay.
or
not cared.
not cared.
Or-
At an unconscious level, she fears being abandoned.
Okay.
She or he. Even it's actually most of these disorders are not gender based, though some disorders could have a higher rate of occurrence among the male or among females.
Females.
Yeah. So borderline personality disorder you can see both in males and females.
Okay. Now, that makes it about 3 or so. In fact. But how many are there so many different kinds of personality traits which you classify, or just 3?
No, there are actually a lot of them. Okay, you have disorders like paranoid personality
Okay.
disorder, schizoid, schizotypal.
Schizoid.
They're all actually divided into different clusters.
Okay.
But when it comes to this interpersonal interaction,
Okay.
where they lead more or less normal lives, and yet they seem normal to everyone around,
Fine.
but it surprises and confounds people when it comes to closer interaction. So when a mediator is sitting there, he could be a bit confused as to why this person cannot see what everybody else can see.
Sees.
Why is he getting upset, or why is he getting aggressive, or why is he not understanding where everybody else gets the message? So being aware of these disorders make it easy sometimes to even change your communication style, or even to be very aware of your facial language, your body language, because if you know the person has a personality disorder of a particular kind, you would be very cautious so as not to trigger it.
Okay.
So we even as therapists, we are very careful about our communication style, because they could easily distrust you, and that is when we cannot have any kind of a therapeutic relationship. Okay.
There's something that we call or hear as hysteria, like most of the time. Does it also come within a psychological issue, or?
Yes, when you say hysteria, actually this is a very old term. You must have heard of
It's
Sigmund
very
Freud.
commonly heard that.
Yes, it started off with Sigmund Freud talking about hysteria as a psychiatric disorder. But today, it is we use the term in a slightly different way, and the connotations are different. Earlier it was mainly, they felt it was in female patients, but today, it could also be seen in a male client. We call it histrionic personality disorder. Okay?
Histrionic.
Yeah, and as the name indicates, it has something to do with someone who's very dramatic. So here again, the person with this disorder is very attention-seeking. Needs again to be a center of attention, needs a lot of approval, but her way of demanding it is very dramatic. So there is an exaggerated need for attention and approval from others. So we have a term called praise me, which describes, each word here describes a person with a histrionic personality disorder. So, such a person could be very provocative. Okay, we see it among young girls or young people who could be described as very lively, vivacious, enthusiastic. We see young students who could take active part in dramatic society, in college elections. But suddenly things go wrong when she gets married, because that's a different level of intimate relationship. So while she was maybe very successful in college life, parents wouldn't, would definitely pamper such a person, because you don't want an anger outburst.
Okay.
So we find problems coming forward when they get married, because here the relationship is slightly
Very
different.
closer, personal and terminal.
Yeah, and the demands and expectations change here. So histrionic personality disorder could be provocative, flirtatious, could be a bit dramatic in their expression of emotions and in their appearance as well.
Okay.
So when I say praise me, it means provocative, like I just said. Also their relationship issues, they could feel that someone is very seriously interested in them when actually it's not.
So, okay.
So you could find couples coming in, boyfriends and girlfriends coming in where, the girl believes that the boy had shown, he's not just a friend, it's not a platonic relationship, but, I thought it was more
Personalized
serious.
relationship kind of.
So she gauges it a bit differently. When I say attention seeking, I already described.
Yep.
It could be in the form of exaggerated emotions, or in the form of dressing up in a provocative way, or making a dramatic appearance, or saying something very dramatic and theatrical. Even emotions could be theatrical, crying and making, it's like maybe out of a movie, and the partner doesn't really know what happens because it's out of proportion. So a histrionic personality disorder, a person could have emotions that is very, what we call
Expressed
labile.
out of proportion kind of.
Yes, borderline personality disorder could have very blunt emotions,
Okay.
where emotions are not as, descriptive as a normal person would. But for histrionic, again, it goes above that line. They are over dramatic, exaggerated, but also they tend to be labile in the sense that they could be suddenly very angry and after some time very loving. So the emotional movement is very fast, could leave the person very tired, and the people involved with her also very emotionally tired after that.
Now, when it comes to psychological, as a normal man understands, there could be something because of certain chemical combinations, or like last time you said, something develops, an enzyme or a hormone develops suddenly, and then that could be because of something like this.
There is a mild connection maybe to the physiological background, biological background, but mainly it is because of the problems that arise out of it. So these disorders have a lot to do with early childhood experiences or environmental upbringing, or maybe watching parents who behave in a particular way. But outcomes, they could have depression. They're very prone to having anxiety or depression. Or borderline clients could, induce self-harm.
Okay.
Suicide rates are very high.
Okay.
Even histrionic.
She feels lost, or he feels lost. I mean, there is
Yes.
nobody to care
Yes.
her, or nobody is concerned about
Yeah.
her.
Histrionic person could be threatening suicide to gain attention.
Attention.
Yeah. So the outcome, depression or anxiety, has a physiological component.
Okay.
So that could be treated with medication.
Not the thought process. Thought process is not because of some kind of an extra hormone or something.
No, it's not something. It's not something that could be directly related to a
Chemical
brain
process.
Yeah, to a chemical process or to the structure of the brain.
Okay.
But it could be corrected through psychotherapy.
Fine. So that means, would it be right in saying that this is because of your earlier life convictions, experiences, that they generate this kind of a feeling, the thought process?
Yes, some of those disorders, say narcissistic or borderline, could have a lot to do with even social
Parenting kind of?
and parenting, or sometimes borderline could also be because of maybe early death or divorce of parents.
Okay. Or disturbed parents, disturbed family.
Disturbed family, yeah.
Causes a lot of this.
Yes, because the kind of interaction that goes on at home is what we call double bind. The mother could be very loving in words,
Yeah.
but actions don't match. So the child is confused. So these kinds of interactions, or the environment, or parenting styles,
Yeah.
or experiences, traumatic experiences,
Okay.
like sudden death of parents, or any traumatic experiences concerning their loved ones, could go a long way in
building up this conviction
up
that this is how things
yeah.
are.
This false belief of
Yeah.
self,
Okay.
false belief of somebody abandoning, not able to trust someone.
Okay.
A lot of them have trust issues.
The concept of human life itself becomes a little different compared to others.
Yeah. They view life and events in a different way.
Different way.
Not because it's deliberate, not because they want something out of it, except for antisocial
Yeah.
personality disorder, But then he also has a reason maybe
Yeah,
for, so, there is always hope for people, as long as they come for treatment.
Yes.
But for mediation, if you are focusing on mediation, we need to do a bit of thinking.
Be careful, handling with these people. Not
yes.
get into treatments or any of these things. In fact.
Because treatment is a long drawn process. Compliance is very poor. So when they come for treatment, they may come saying the other person is sick, or they may come with a lot of motivation for 1 or 2 sessions, and they usually drop out.
And that's very confusing for a mediator as to what exactly the person is expressing or putting forward.
The mediator could get confused and could maybe blame his own mediation skills when maybe it's not, and but if he's aware of how the other person is thinking and evaluating, if he studies further.
You could modulate the whole mediation process accordingly.
Yeah, it could. It is possible.
Can I ask you on one thing? No, there are lots of people who come to when these kind of people coming to you on a regular basis. How do you manage these kind of persons? In fact, there are some treated by psychiatrists by chemicals and all that. Like medicines, medication. You said these people are not treated by medication, but the secondary stages are being treated by medication. That's what you mentioned.
Yes.
How do you manage these kind of disorders, which are so deep-rooted in the person?
Okay. First of all, they are not dangerous. They are genuinely suffering, so they come for help. Secondly, they need a combined treatment. These other issues that they have, which can be treated through medication, they would already be having medication for that. And we believe a combination of medicine and psychotherapy would help. Psychotherapy. So when they come, I think when there is personality disorder, the first thing we need to work on is trust. Because before the process gets going, the person needs to trust me as someone who understands, or someone who won't judge him, or someone who's trying to help. But he's constantly unsure. He's unsure whether he can trust or not, because he has a fragile sense of self and he doesn't want to be hurt.
And he has never trusted anybody before also.
So it's a new thing for him. But over a period of time, this sense of trust can be built up. And if they continue to come, we use certain therapeutic methods depending on the kind of problems they have. So those methods can be used to bring about a change in the thinking style or in the emotional style.
I've heard that these kind of persons, not so deep, but then anybody who tries to advise them, they take him as an enemy as such, they don't take advices. Like a father advising a child, they wouldn't accept such kind of advice. Is that right in a way?
Very true. Because even as a therapist to whom they come for help, we don't advise. So it is more of learning, following particular, very structured psychotherapeutic methods, which again is dependent on a particular school of thought. So whichever therapy methods you follow, or is good for that kind of a disorder, we use certain interactive styles. For instance, if a person has issues around trust, I wouldn't agree with the person, I wouldn't disagree with the person.
Okay.
So that is a very difficult thing
Way
to
of
do.
managing things.
Yes.
Now, the 4 categories that you had mentioned, you said the whole issue comes up when there is somebody who is so closely associating with that particular person, and not in a college or not in a general club where your relationship is not that deep, certainly in that case, these 4 categories would have a difficulty in marriage.
Definitely.
Is that one? And have you experienced this kind of issues in marriage, marital discordance?
Yes, it is very common. Almost I have read in India, I believe it's up to 20-24%.
20 to 24 of the causes basically because of these 4.
Personality disorders.
Okay.
Around that time.
Apart from the other psychiatric problems.
From others.
Okay.
Very often this exists in combination with something else, or sometimes just alone.
This is hidden.
Yeah.
Even he himself doesn't realize, nor the partner realizes.
Yes.
Fine.
So it's like a third factor.
Okay.
So sometimes just bringing the awareness that, two people like each other and yet they don't know why they can't be
Yes.
close, or
Be
why
together.
are they fighting all the time. And when they realize that it is not either of them, but maybe a third hidden factor, I call it factor C, and if they learn to focus on that factor, they stop fighting between each other.
Okay.
And they focus on maybe treatment or improving their interactive style or other methods that could bring about a better relationship between the two of them.
Now, how much time does this take, in managing these kind of issues? Why I ask you on this is because mediation, you don't prolong it to such a long-term basis. In fact, we get most of the matters referred. Now, is it possible that you manage this in a shorter period also in certain cases?
It's very difficult.
Very difficult.
Very difficult, because to bring awareness to the person that he needs help,
that would be a little dangerous. If you mention directly to him that he needs help.
It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work at all. So
we need to be more subtle, and you need to have a professional approach. You need to read up a lot, and
so it is a very long-term, time-consuming activity, correcting these people.
Yes.
And until then, they would have this kind of, strong conviction about what they are saying. In fact,
yes.
In these four categories, once we feel that there are some people who have got these kind of disorders, would it be conducive for mediation with these kind of persons?
You see, there are levels or degrees of the disorder. So when it is very severe and the mediation process is coming to a stop here and there, it's time to reconsider.
Okay.
If it is something very mild and the mediator also is aware of the condition, changing body language and communication style could bring about some kind of an environment or a way of thinking that could put the process forward, but it could be very difficult.
In marital relationships, those kind of family matters that we get mediation. As a professional, would you suggest that if one person has got this kind of a disorder, personality disorder, and as you said, it would be difficult for the marriage to sustain, a good marriage to sustain. We have two options. Most of them come with either for a divorce, a separation, or to rebuild the old relationship. Which one would be more advised?
As a therapist, I am happy with happy divorces also.
Happy divorces.
We like to bring people together, but you need two people to create a relationship, and one to break it. So when one is not ready for a relationship, to contribute to a relationship, it's very difficult for that marriage to succeed.
Okay.
So we need to take a call. We could reach a point when we know that it may not work. They may agree in front of a third person for a social image, but it may not work in the long run. They go back home and they start again. So as a therapist, I'm wary, and I am very careful. For me, it is very important that two individuals are happy.
They are happy.
And the children are happy. So in a marriage, we need to consider all, if there are children, to make sure children are safe and there is a healthy atmosphere at home. You can keep two people together. If they're constantly fighting, it's not healthy for the children.
Fine.
So you could have happy divorces where, the children could still have relationship with their father and mother.
Individually with the parents.
Yes.
Individually.
Yes. It's happening a lot today.
Okay.
And I'm not very familiar with the legal system,
Yes.
but I believe, happy divorces are possible and sometimes healthy for the
understand.
family.
Just last few questions. On the marital issues, we find basically people keeping away from the other spouse. That's one complaint that we normally get. Then the next one is generally kind of a avoidance and a second relationship. These are few. And the third one is they complain about cruelty as a somebody is too cruel to the person. Do you associate all these with any kind of psychological issues?
Sometimes.
Or is it purely need-based?
Sometimes, yeah. You could have a couple without any of these psychological disorders, but suffering or having the same problems.
Okay.
You could have cruelty is a very strong term here. I understand cruelty could mean physical harm.
Physical harm,
or
induced.
psychological harm to a person. That needs to be really looked into. When it comes to avoidance and having an affair, it doesn't have to be necessarily a psychiatric disorder.
Okay.
Because for a marriage, what is very important is trust. And besides that, you need a sense of commitment.
Okay.
Two people need to be committed to the marriage so that they can go through the good times and the bad times.
Yeah.
And are mentally prepared for that. You would not have good times all the time. So when you're committed to it, you would, go through bad times as well together.
Fine. The causes could be certain miscommunication, misconceptions and other things.
Yes.
Vis-a-vis the other person.
Yes.
So would it be right in saying that those three need not be in these cases and they have to be seen a little different and they are manageable also, right?
Definitely.
The other cases.
Yes.
Whereas this is a little difficult to be managed.
Yes.
And it has to be identified when we look into these kind of issues.
Yes.
I believe we have taken a lot of your time, and at this time I believe we have had a lot more of points as to what makes relationships go bad and why things go even without somebody's fault and all that. And certainly this must be helping the mediators to understand why things are not the way they feel and they see.
Okay.
And hope to see you again on another topics. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You can stop. It's on. Can stop.